Happy Monday, everybody. I'm Nate Eaton. I hope you had a good day. It is the 1st of May, week number 5 of the Lori Vallow trial. That does include a week of jury selection that we had at the beginning of April, and then 3 weeks of testimony. And here we are with the prosecution still going strong. And my, what a day we had in the courtroom. A major development. A lot of you have been saying, where's the smoking gun? Well, we might have that. Or there could be some more questions about that. We're going to talk about it all tonight. We have major DNA developments, Tammy's autopsy, Alex's movements, a visit to Chick-fil-A, a visit to a Mexican restaurant in Arizona. It's as if all the pieces are coming together in this big puzzle, but some questions from the defense. Some valid questions about some of the evidence that we heard today and some of the witnesses. There were only 3 witnesses on the stand today, but there was a lot of information there. We had a DNA analyst. We had a retired FBI special agent who now does consulting work for the FBI. And then we ended the day with the chief medical examiner in Utah. Utah doesn't have coroners. They have medical examiners, which are quite different, forensic pathologists, which they go to school, they get training. They do the autopsies. In Idaho, you have coroners in all the counties. The coroner doesn't really need any qualifications. I could go be the coroner. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what the coroner said. And a dramatic moment that I think everyone in the courtroom will remember is when the prosecutor gave the medical examiner an image of silhouette of a body and said, point out on this silhouette where you saw bruises on Tammy Daybell's body. And then they showed it on the screen. And there wasn't just one bruise or 2 bruises. There were several bruises, and they were in the spots where somebody might bruise if they're being held down. We'll talk about that tonight. Here's what else we have coming up. Hair found on an adhesive tape was Lori's, confirmed from the mouth of a DNA expert today. We have play-by-play movements of Alex Cox. What was he doing around the time Tammy Daybell was killed, and J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan? His phone was being tracked. There were data points. In case you don't know, there's a few things that your phone uses when you're going out and about. There's Wi-Fi everywhere, and Wi-Fi can kind of tap your phone, or your phone can kind of tap that even if you don't connect, and they're able to track exactly all the places your phone goes. We have receipts that were found in the Jeep. We have a deep dive into Tammy's autopsy that will continue tomorrow with the defense cross-examining the ME. Larry Woodcock responded today after court, came out, spoke with the media, and of course we will remember the victims tonight. Now here's the sketches from today in court. On the left, you have Keely Coleman. She's a senior DNA analyst for Bodie Technologies in Virginia. On the right, you have Rick Wright, the FBI agent who spoke about the movements of Alex, where he was, where he went, everything from the trip to Yellowstone to the night Tammy died to a quick trip down to Las Vegas. All that was played out. Here's an image that the sketch artist Lisa caught of Larry and Kay holding hands. They were there today listening to the testimony. Here's Lindsay Blake, the Fremont County prosecutor, questioning a witness with, you can see in the foreground, you've got Rob Wood and Tanya Rawlings there. And then further back, you have Jim, Archibald, Lori, and John Thomas, her attorneys. Remember a minute ago, I talked about the spots where the medical examiner was asked to mark where there were bruises on Tammy's bodies. This image shows that. That is the ME, Dr. Eric Christensen, on the stand. And then they put his image on the big screen. That's the front of her body. And then they showed on the back. But notice where those bruises are. Right there. Right on the bicep area. Right up the upper arm. Where somebody might hold somebody down. We're going to get into all that tonight. First, though, I want to thank you for being here, of course, and for following along. I get to meet so many interesting people while covering this story. And today I met such a woman who came from Texas to see Lori Vallow. She knew Lori back when Lori was married to Joseph Ryan, so she knew her as Joseph Ryan. She knew her as Lori Ryan. And she walked into a hairdress salon one day, a hairdressing salon, a beauty salon, I should say. And Lori was the hairdresser. And she said that Lori did the best job. In fact, she started going to Lori every day for 10, not every day, every hair appointment for 10 years. And they became friends. And Lori would sometimes talk about the LDS church. This woman knew that Lori was an LDS member, a member of the church, but Lori didn't talk anything about zombies or anything such as that. Shelley Vester spoke with me and said that it was surreal because Lori did her hair for 10 years and then Lori moved. And then the next time she heard about Lori is when she saw me on the news chasing her down in Hawaii. Shelley is a photographer, and she took this photo of Lori. This was, again, at least 10, 15 years ago. And she's had this photo in her possession. And today she walked into court and saw Lori and said that it's a completely different person. Lori has obviously aged, but she doesn't look the same. But when Shelley walked in the courtroom, she saw Lori mouth to her attorney, "That's my friend. My friend is here." And Shelley said she just felt the need to come from Texas just to kind of get closure on this whole thing. And there's so many people that feel that same way, that maybe knew Lori in the past or knew Charles, knew JJ Tiley, knew the families. Maybe they went to church with them or something like that. They just felt the need to be here, to see her, to witness this thing. And the trial is winding down. I don't know how much longer it will be happening. I would predict another, probably over a week. But 2 weeks from now, by then, we could have a verdict. Maybe 3 weeks from now, we definitely should have a verdict. So everything's coming together, and I'm going to jump right into the testimony. All right, here we go. You ready? Hope you have a drink of water or something, because there's a lot to pack in. I'm going to give you the highlights. The audio came in really late today, probably 20 minutes ago, just quickly. So I'm starting to cut it up, and I'll play some pieces of it for you. But then later on tonight, if you want to go back and listen to the testimony, you can. First witness was Keely Coleman, as I mentioned. She's tested thousands of DNA samples over the course of her career. One thing I don't think I knew until today, I probably learned this in biology, was that 99% of our DNA is the same. It's the 1% that's not the same that they test. And that's exactly what happened with this particular case. They found a hair on an adhesive that was wrapped around JJ's body. Now, I got clarification. Remember, JJ was wrapped at his ankles and his wrists and his mouth. This was not that tape. He was then wrapped in plastic. This tape came from the wrapping on the plastic. So not from his actual body, but the wrapping around the plastic. So it was tape that wrapped his body, but it was the tape that was in the plastic. It is also not the last minute DNA test that the prosecutors got just a few weeks ago. Remember how John Pryor, Chad's attorney, said, "We just got this DNA testing. We don't have time to test it." And that was the reason the cases were severed. It's not that. This was an earlier sample of DNA. Not super early. I mean, they haven't had this for a year. It is fairly recent, but it's not the most recent. So I want to just play you exactly what Keely Coleman said on the stand. I'll be honest, it's Monday morning. We're typing away. It's kind of tired, paying attention to the testimony. And when they got down to talking about the hair and the DNA, I was kind of expecting them to say, yeah, it was Alex's hair. Or it was Tylee's hair, because that's kind of what we had all along. The big fingerprint reveal and the palm print. Oh, whose is it? It was Alex's. And of course, they found Tylee's DNA. So when they said, this, Lori's, that was huge. Again, this could be one of the smoking gun moments of this case. I'm going to play it for you. I'll talk about it with you on the other side. Okay, apparently you're not hearing this, and I don't know why. This says you are hearing it. So what I'm going to do is put my microphone up to the speaker so you can hear it. Okay. So now you can hear me twice. I'm sorry. Here we go. Let me put this up to the speaker so that you can hear it, and then again we'll talk about it. My apologies.
In May of 2022, I received 3 DNA profiles. These were from Lori Vallow Daybell, Tylee Ryan, and Melanie Gibb. I also received several items of evidence, one of which was processed as Bodie EO1, which was a hair attached to a piece of adhesive.
How was this evidence processed?
So similar to the process that I described before, a portion of this submitted hair item was taken forward and put into a test tube. It went through a series of washes to get rid of any extraneous DNA that may have been on the hair. We were trying to focus on the hair itself. Then additional reagents and chemicals were added to the sample, and it went through a series of heating and cooling steps to isolate any DNA that may have been present. We determined how much DNA was present in that sample, then made lots and lots of copies, put that on a genetic analyzer, and analyzed the data that was obtained using a computer software program.
What results were obtained from your analysis?
So from the Bodie item EO1, which was the hair sample, a partial female profile was obtained.
Were you able to make any conclusions based on those results?
Yes. Tylee Ryan and Melanie Gibb were excluded as possible contributors of that partial DNA profile. The partial DNA profile matched the DNA profile that was provided for Lori Vallow Daybell.
Did you perform any statistics for the match?
Yes, I did. The probability of randomly selecting an unrelated individual with that partial DNA profile is 1 in 71 billion.
Okay, so I don't know if you caught that. I'm sorry that the sound was so bad. I'm going to post that later. You can listen to it more clear. They took DNA from Tylee, Melanie Gibb, and Lori. Many of you are saying, why Melanie Gibb? Well, if you remember, Melanie Gibb stayed at the house where JJ and Tylee were supposedly living with Lori's house in Rexburg. So the only thing I can think of, and I'll try to get clarification if I can on this, is maybe they figured, well, JJ, Melanie Gibb had contact with him. She slept in his room. JJ may have had her DNA on him. Maybe they just wanted to test it and see. And that would have been fascinating if Melanie Gibb's DNA came back. But it was Lori's on that hair, not Tylee's. And did you catch the statistics there? 1 in 71 billion. Rob Wood then at the end, so after this exchange, the defense attorney, John Thomas, got up there and tried to say that basically out of these 22 characteristics of the DNA that was tested, I'm using very simple terms here. You can go listen to the science of it all if you want. It got pretty deep. But let's say there's 22 categories on a specific DNA sample. On 13 of them, they had no results. So he was making the point that, well, 13 of them didn't show that they matched to anybody. Just the remaining 9 did to Lori, so it wasn't like 100%. And then Rob Wood got up and said, just so I'm sure, give me the stat again. She said 1 in 71 billion, and then she said it would be like if I put 71 billion names or something in a hat, and then I picked one out, like that is the stat that this is Lori Daybell's DNA. Huge news. Again, huge news. So that was a pretty riveting testimony. Now, the defense did not do this. I'm kind of surprised. They might come back and do this later. They could easily say, of course her hair is going to be on there. She washed her son's clothes. He was in PJs. And she washed her clothes with his clothes, and hair gets in there. And of course, when whoever killed JJ took him, a little hair came off and got stuck in the tape. Well, yeah, that's obvious. They didn't go there, though. I thought they might. I mean, there are ways that you can kind of poke in this argument, but the fact it's on the tape that wrapped around his body. Again, they might be able to say, well, the tape was found in Lori Vallow's garage, because we know that from earlier testimony, and she had used it on something else. I don't know what. And so, yeah, maybe some of her tape got caught in it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the argument would be, but I would have thought the defense would have gone after that a bit more. And again, they still can. They have their defense to put on, and they have closing arguments coming up. Instead, John Thomas seemed to be poking at the DNA factor and how there could have been maybe some flaws in the DNA testing. So this is a testimony that might change a few minds on the jury. I will say Lori was attentive during this. I say attentive, she looks back and forth from the questioner to the witness, doodling on her pad, talking with her attorneys. I mean, nothing really different about her behavior today. Okay, so after Miss Coleman was on the stand for about an hour or so, 45 minutes or so, then we heard from Rick Wright. Now, he is now a contract FBI worker. He retired in August of 2021, but he was kind of the case agent for the FBI in charge when this case broke. He was the violent crimes against children coordinator for the FBI in the Denver unit for over a decade. He has quite a bit of experience tracking down children who are in danger or being trafficked or kidnapped. And he was in the meeting where Ian Pawlowski met with police. This is something that we haven't really explored that I think it will come up. I'm just going to pull this up now. What he told police. So on the night that Melanie married Ian, Melanie, Lori's niece, married Ian, according to Ian, Melanie started to tell him some really weird stuff about the light and dark scale and kids being possessed and whatnot. Ian got freaked out, called his ex-wife. His ex-wife said, go to the police. Ian went to the police in Rexburg. And this FBI agent, Wright, was there with Ray Hermosillo and Ron Ball and some of the others. And Ian agreed to wear not a wire, but a recording device and record conversations with Lori and his wife, Melanie, and Alex and Chad. And he apparently did record some of those conversations. Now, I thought as they were leading up to this testimony that we would hear some of those, but we didn't. But that might be coming in later because the FBI agent introduced it. But that's kind of all he talked about with Ian. The main point of this FBI agent's testimony was Alex and Alex's movements. And Alex's devices movements, because you cannot 100% say with certainty that it was Alex, but it was his device. Much like this is my device. And this is a basic summary of how this expert said they pull data points from someone's phone. Let's say I'm here at my hotel right now and I'm on the Wi-Fi, or I'm not on the Wi-Fi, which my phone right now is not on the Wi-Fi at my hotel. I leave here and I drive down to downtown Boise to the courthouse. I stay for 10 minutes. I stop at McDonald's and I get an ice cream cone, and then I go to the store and then I come home. There's data points all along the way that my device triggered. And these data points are pulled from three things. One, Wi-Fi. Even if you don't log onto the Wi-Fi can ping, or your phone can ping that you were in the Wi-Fi range. Two is GPS. I don't think I have GPS activated on my phone, but I might. Alex did. So that you've got the Wi-Fi pings, you've got the GPS, and then third is the cell towers, which is the most unreliable because you kind of get a generic area. But if you've got all three of those, especially if you're logged onto the Wi-Fi, if I logged onto the Wi-Fi here, and then I logged on at the courthouse, and then I logged on at McDonald's, boom, that's tracing my pattern. And that's exactly how they traced Alex Cox and what he was doing on several dates. They started with the Yellowstone trip. Actually, it looks like Alex Cox moved to Rexburg September 1st. They tracked him. He was in St. George. He gets to Rexburg September 1st. On September 8th, they go to Yellowstone. They're able to tell that he left Lori's apartment and his apartment, and they stopped at Maverick, the gas station. Then they made their way up to West Yellowstone. They were able to tell everywhere they went in the park. They stopped at, not everywhere, but almost everywhere. They stopped at Old Faithful. They stopped at Old Faithful. They went into the cafeteria there at the Old Faithful. And then they drove around the park. And he said there was nothing unusual about their visits or their stops. There was one point where Alex may have stopped in the park and turned around on a road, and they were at the park all day, and then they left. And again, nothing unusual about that trip. It's fascinating to me. By the way, side note, I've been in Yellowstone as recent as last summer or 2 summers ago, and there's a lot of dead spots with Wi-Fi or with internet. So I was wondering if there would have been dead spots during this, but apparently they had enough of a trail to go off of. They stopped at a barbecue restaurant in West Yellowstone, which is right outside of Yellowstone, and then they continued back to Rexburg, and they got there late at night. I don't remember the exact time, and they said that the agent said that the trip was non-eventful in their eyes. That's where that photo of Tylee and JJ and Alex were taken there at Yellowstone. And Lori could be heard by somebody on my row who was sitting near me. She said that when they showed that photo, Lori said, "I took that picture." So she must have remembered the photo. Well, remember, this is September 8th. That's the last known photo of Tylee Ryan. September 9th, the data points, the very next morning, have Alex at Lori's apartment between 2:42 a.m. and 9:49 a.m. The pattern of Alex shows that was very unusual. He would often be at Lori's between 8 and midnight, but then he would go to his house around midnight till whenever the next morning, 8, 9, 10, 11, whenever. This was the only night that entire month of September that he was at Lori's house between 2:42 a.m. and 9:49 a.m. The same morning, police say Tylee died. The next day at 9:15 a.m., the data points show Alex left the apartments and drove over to Chad's. He was there. He got there around 9. Or there were data points at Chad's between 9:15 and 9:45. He was there till 11:45. He left and went to Del Taco, which is kind of north of Rexburg. On the way from Chad's house, you pull into Rexburg, there's Del Taco, and then he continued on home. So they have the data points of where Alex was on the property that day. He was near the fire pit where Tylee was found. He was near the front door. He was near the shed. They tracked his device all over the place. Here's the interesting thing. 11:45, he leaves Chad's property. At 11:53, 8 minutes later, Chad sends that text to Tammy at work about the raccoon. Remember, he was going to burn limb debris before the storm came in. And as he was burning the debris in the fire pit, he saw a raccoon in the middle of the day. So he got his gun and shot it in one shot and buried it in the pet cemetery and ended the text with "good times." The message that out of all of his messages was uber long compared to all of his other correspondence with Tammy. That's the message. Alex goes to his apartment that day from 12:11 to 9:41. And then at 9:41, I'm sorry. Let me back up. This is another day. So that was all of the movements on September 9th. Let's fast forward to September 22nd, the day that police believe JJ died. He's at Lori's apartment between 4:29 p.m. and 12:11 a.m., but he's not staying there. He's going back and forth between his apartment and her apartment. Remember, the same day Melanie Gibb and David Warwick were there, and they said they saw Alex leave and come back with JJ. So he's back and forth till around 12:11 a.m. between 12 and 11 a.m. and 9:41 a.m., he's at his apartment. At 9:41 a.m., he goes to Chad's. He gets there at 9:55, 14 minutes later. He leaves at 10:12. So he is at the apartment for 17 minutes. Sorry, he is at Chad's for 17 minutes. Then he goes to Lori's at 10:22. He leaves Chad's after being there 17 minutes, goes to Lori's, and stays until 11:14. The data points showed he was at the pond area at Chad's house, among other places in the yard. There were 4 total visits of Alex visiting Chad Daybell's house during the month of September of 2019. September 6th, before the Yellowstone trip. September 9th, right after the Yellowstone trip, last time Tylee was seen alive. September 23rd, the 17-minute visit with JJ. September 25th, he went back 2 days later. Here's the interesting thing. They have Alex visiting a tinting shop, a window tint shop in Rexburg on September 23rd and September 25th. September 23rd, again, the day JJ, they believe, was buried at Chad Daybell's house. It was a short visit. But what was Brandon Boudreaux shot at? From a Jeep with tinted windows on October the 1st. And what did police find in that Jeep when they seized it? A receipt from a Mexican restaurant in Arizona on October 1st at 1:12 p.m. So the windows get tinted, we think. They didn't show any receipts from the tint shop. He was at least investigating it, looking into it. Brandon shot at the morning of October 1st after he gets home from the gym. Apparently after that shooting, Alex went to get Mexican. He went to get Del Taco after the other incident. But there's another receipt that's in the Jeep that police found. And it's Chick-fil-A in Ammon. The date, October 18th, 2019. So why is that significant? Tammy Daybell died the night of October 18th into October 19th. So the timestamp on this Chick-fil-A visit was 8:05 p.m. So Alex was at Chick-fil-A before Tammy Daybell died. I could not see from my seat. They had the times on the screen, and it was really small print. I think he was at Chick-fil-A for over an hour, which was kind of interesting to me that, you know, I've gone to Chick-fil-A by myself. I went out to eat tonight by myself at Chili's, and I stayed maybe at most an hour. The service is pretty quick if you're by yourself. I mean, I was working tonight, but Alex was there at Chick-fil-A that night for over an hour. Was he waiting for a call? Was he waiting for a message? Was he waiting for a pre-designated time to go do something? I have no idea. I just know that his phone, again, the data point showed he was at Chick-fil-A, and they have the receipt. I didn't see what he ordered. So Tammy dies that night. So, again, all of these data points are coming together. I know it's information overload. I'm throwing it all at you, kind of the key points, and these were just a few of them. Now, let me tell you, on September 25th, these people are busy. JJ dies the 23rd. He's going to the window tint shop on the 23rd. The 25th, he goes to Walmart in Idaho Falls and gets a burner phone or a track phone. On October 8th, he went to the other Walmart in Rexburg and got a phone, another burner phone. The interesting thing is that he didn't activate that October 8th phone until October 9th. That's the day that somebody shot at Tammy as she got out of the car. So does that all make sense? He's got 2 backup phones now, September 25th, October 8th. They were able to find those phones when they went in and did the search warrant. They found those phones in his apartment, and they were able to track them to Walmart. Unfortunately, Walmart, the companies that provided those phones, they didn't save any of the text messages. So they don't have the information on there. On October 1st and 2nd, his phone, not the track phones, but his phone that they've been collecting all these data points off of, stays at his apartment and never leaves. It's there the entire time. But remember, October 1st, he's in Arizona, allegedly shooting at Brandon. Well, it would make sense why he now had the track phone, the other phone, the burner phone. Because there could be some assumption of, oh, the police won't be able to track me if I leave my phone at home. In case anything goes wrong here, I'll just use this backup phone. So his phone, his like real phone assigned to his account, stayed at his house. But on October 3rd, the phone shows that he's back at Lori's. So let me set the stage. September 30th, his phone is at Lori's. But then it goes back to his apartment and never leaves October 1st or 2nd. Stays there. That's the time that Brandon is being shot at in Arizona. That's the time that whoever was driving the Jeep stopped at the Mexican restaurant and left the receipt in the car. But then on the 3rd, the phone goes back to Lori's apartment and they're able to track it. Not only are they able to track that, they track several visits to the gun range, a few gun ranges in eastern Idaho. He visits the gun range on October 9th. And he also visits, which is the day that Tammy was shot at, Sportsman's Warehouse in Idaho Falls. And this is how good that data location points is. The data points are inside the store. They were able to go visit where he went inside the store. The detective asked for all the receipts from that period of time. There were about 60 receipts. Most of them were debit or credit cards. He could rule those out. But there was one transaction for cash. And guess what was bought? A Frog Tog rain pants. I'd never heard of Frog Tog rain pants until today. Guess what was in Lori's garage when police found it? Frog Tog rain pants. Guess what Alex had Googled on his device? Frog Tog rain pants. Not only were the Frog Tog rain pants there was a ski mask with 3 holes, eyes and mouth. There was gloves, you know the gloves where they're cut here and you can pull the mitten over so that you keep your fingers warm, but you can also strap it back and Velcro it here. Easy to type with on your phone, use your phone, hold a gun. Those were on the receipts. So, again, they tracked it to Sportsman's Warehouse where he bought them. And then he visited on October 9th. Here's the interesting thing on October 9th. That's the day that Tammy Daybell gets out of her car. There's a masked man in her driveway. We later learn it's Alex Cox. His phone tracked him leaving Sportsman's Warehouse. There's data points all the way up to Chad's house. It was around before 5 o'clock in the evening. Think about fall in eastern Idaho, mid-October. Sun's going down probably around 6 o'clock, maybe a little earlier. The data point showed him driving to Chad's house, but not stopping. In fact, turning around, kind of doing 2 drive-bys and then going back to his apartment. But he stopped. The device stopped near a little canal pull-off on the one side of Chad's house. And the special agent thinks that because there weren't very many places out there on that rural road, if you've been out there, there's no, side areas to really pull off. You're kind of on the road. There's no sidewalks. There's no driveways. It's very rural. However, the one place that would fit a single vehicle was near this canal. And so the special agent believed that if you were going to try to commit some sort of crime out there, like a shooting, and you need to get out of a car and get away quick, you could do that and then run around the north side of the house, which is what happened, and then run down the street, and right there's a little pull-off by the canal, hop in and leave. Another interesting thing with the phones. He got that second phone on October 8th from Walmart. He didn't activate it until the 9th at 1:20 p.m. Again, they don't know what texts were sent from that phone, but there were 10 texts sent between Alex and Chad between 7:13 and 10:30 that night. That's a lot of texts. If only those could be retrieved. On October 13th, so by the way, that shooting was unsuccessful, remember? And coincidentally, that was the last time Alex visited a shooting range that we have record of, at least. So the shooting doesn't happen on the 9th. Tammy Daybell's still alive. On the 13th, Alex leaves Idaho, drives to Las Vegas, and Lori gets on a plane. He likely was taking her to the airport. Do you remember that when Tammy Daybell died on the 19th or 18th/19th, she was in Hawaii? Well, her brother had taken her to the airport to fly to Hawaii. So that's the 13th. If I would have had time, I would have drawn this all out because there's so many dates. Now let's go to the 18th of October. Hope you're with me. If you're confused, let me know. 18th of October, 2019, Tammy Daybell's last day on Earth. There is a stop at the Chick-fil-A Ammon. I mentioned that. Oh, I do have the time. So he was there. The data points show he was at the Chick-fil-A from 7:58 to 9:32 p.m., an hour and a half at Chick-fil-A by himself. Then there are data points at the Salem Church at 10:07. He leaves Chick-fil-A. He goes to the Salem Church, which is about 2.5 miles away from Chad's house. He's at the church from 10:07 to 10:45, according to the data points. Then nothing from 10:45 to 11:53. So was his phone turned off? Remember Brian Koberger? They said the University of Idaho guy who's accused of killing those 4 students. The night that the crimes happened, his phone was turned off. They weren't able to find anything, but yet they found activity the day before and the day after. Well, Alex Cox, there is an hour of nothing. But then at 11:53, we get data points. And he's headed south on Highway 20, not to his house, but to the Hilton Garden Inn in Idaho Falls, where he spent the night. Interesting. I don't know why he didn't go home. But that's the night Tammy Daybell died. Alex was in the area. There's no data point directly at Chad Daybell's house, though. There are data points at the church, and there are data points leaving the area after he was there for an hour, around 11:53. So, one of the points the defense raised, back to the 17 minutes. That's how long that Alex's data points showed at Chad Daybell's property for J.J. Vallow, the day that J.J. died. And the defense made the point of asking the FBI special agent, could you really bury a body in 17 minutes? And dig a hole and put the body in there and put planks and rocks and cut the roots around. And the special agent said, no, I don't believe you could. That'd be a lot of work for someone to do in 17 minutes. But then Lindsay Blake stood up, the prosecutor for Fremont, and said, could someone with help, with more than one person, bury a body in 17 minutes? And the witness said, yeah, probably, I believe so. Here's the other point that they raised. The data point, the other point of data they raised, the data point from Alex's device showed up near the fence on Chad Daybell's property, a fence which opened and it would allow a vehicle to drive in. Interesting. So they were making the point that someone could have driven in. Now, was the hole already dug when Alex got there? Chad Daybell was a grave digger. Did he already have the area? Oh, it's giving me nice music. We probably need that right now. Let's just take a break. I'll turn that off. That was the hole already dug? Chad Daybell was a grave digger. He knew how to do it. Did Alex simply drop off the body and leave? I don't know. I don't know if we will ever know unless someone says something. But that's kind of where the defense went with that. Okay, that is a boiled down summary of everything that was said about the data points. It was fascinating. It was interesting, especially when you had the visuals. I really wish that we could have the exhibits and then I would show them for you tonight. We can't get those till after the trial's over. But if you're interested in it, I'll post that audio and you can go listen to Detective or Special Agent Wright. The last witness called today was Dr. Eric Christensen. He's the medical examiner in Utah. He's done 7,200 autopsies over the course of his career. He's exhumed bodies, and he determined that Tammy Daybell died of asphyxia. There was nothing. They did extensive testing when her body was exhumed. They tested for poison. They tested for insecticide. They tested for everything. The only thing they found in her body was her prescription drug. And that was it. There wasn't anything abnormal. Her organs looked fine. There wasn't a high blood pressure or a low blood pressure issue. They really tested for everything. There was no signs of seizures on her brain. Remember how Chad told someone that she had maybe been having some seizures? There wasn't any. The detective or the medical examiner says he's worked on people who've had seizures. Often they bite their tongue, or they're having a seizure, and that could kill someone if you stop breathing. But there was none of that with Tammy Daybell. The ME talked about the point that Tammy was cold and stiff. Chad said that she was cold and stiff at 6 a.m. And he talked about the phases, I don't want to get too graphic here, of decomposition of a body. And normally you become cold and stiff about 2 hours after you die. And then lividity sits in, where the blood pools at the lowest spot in your body, which if you're lying down would be your back, your lower back. Chad said she probably died around midnight. Well, then by the time the coroner would have gotten there and the police, that's 6 hours later. Her body probably would have been in a different state. The big question we did not have answered: what asphyxiated her? A pillow, a plastic bag, a towel, somebody strangling her? We don't know. And I don't know if we'll ever know, because they probably would have talked about that today. But they do know that she died of asphyxiation. And there were bruises on her body. I'm going to show this image again. The prosecutor gave the ME a silhouette drawing of front and back, and asked the medical examiner to point out with a blue pen where there were bruises on Tammy. There were multiple bruises on her upper right arm. There was one on her lower part of her arm. There was a bruise on her left arm. There was one right above her left breast. When she turned over, there was some bruising. There was no bruising on the lower part of her body, and it appears that someone held her down as they killed her. And there may have been a struggle. We don't know. So with that, the medical examiner finished his testimony with the prosecution, but first thing tomorrow, the defense will begin cross-examining her. They showed close-up images of the bruises, of the parts of the autopsy. We saw some of them in court. Some of them were not shown to everybody. The judge had the screens turned around. The jurors got to see the pictures, and so did the rest of the court, but we did not. The general public did not, but we did see some, and they looked like big bruises, but it may have been because they were so zoomed up. But they were noticed. They were noticed by the medical examiner, and that was another reason why he determined cause of death as asphyxia, because of the way that there were those bruises, and then the fact that she died the way she did. So if you're fascinated by all that stuff too, it's Dr. Eric Christensen. I'll post that on our YouTube channel tonight. You can go listen to that testimony. I hope that's helpful, and I hope that kind of explains stuff. All right, I want to share. I honestly, I could go on for 5 hours with everything today, because it was a really fascinating day. There were only 3 witnesses, but all of them just packed so much into their testimony. And we'll see what happens tomorrow. We know that tomorrow the defense will be back to cross-examine Dr. Christensen. But there'll be more witnesses too. There will be more witnesses called, and that should be a packed week full of testimony. I've shown this photo before on your right of JJ and Tylee. I think it's my favorite one of them. And then there's this cute one of JJ on the left. Somebody sent me this and said JJ loved to go to church. He would lay out his church clothes the night before going. He loved being there with the other kids. One of his favorite things to do at church in Hawaii was to pull the fire alarm quite often. Thankfully, the members of the congregation knew the alarm was just JJ and were not worried about a real emergency, but they were loving and patient with JJ, wanting to explore and be a part of church every week. JJ won the hearts of so many people of all ages. That's a great memory. Can you imagine the fire alarm going off every week? Some people might like that. They get to get out of church, go outside. These two cute little kids are the faces behind these horrific crimes. And so I hope that we remember them as curious and as interesting the evidence might get in this case. Tonight, we'll remember JJ and Tylee and Tammy and Charles, who have been so captured the hearts of so many around the country. All right, should we do questions? I feel like I've talked a lot. I'm going to get some water. There's a lot of questions, I know. All righty, here we go. I'll try to get to as many as I can. You guys have great questions, so please keep sending them in because I'd love to answer them. One of the questions I get is, where should I put my question? Put it wherever you're watching this. If you're watching on YouTube, put it in the comments. And please subscribe. That helps us. We had our biggest YouTube month ever. I have to say thank you. I worried a little bit that people might not be interested in this case and that it would cost my company a lot of money to come out to Boise and be here. Please don't take this as a sob story. But we had our biggest month. There is definitely an interest, and I so appreciate that. So no matter where you're watching, subscribe to our YouTube channel or on Facebook. You can like the page or follow the page. They change it every so often. And then you can get updates. But wherever you're watching, that's where you can send the questions. Nate, this is from Amy. Do you know if the jurors were asked their religious affiliation, especially affiliation with the LDS Church? Nope, they weren't. They're not legally allowed to be asked that. Shane, what was Lori's reaction to them finding her hair on the duct tape? And on the night Tammy died, was Alex's phone pinged near there? Good question, Shane. Her reaction to the duct tape piece of evidence, I didn't see much of a difference compared to her reaction elsewhere. It wasn't, her mouth didn't hit the floor. She didn't burst out in tears, or she didn't sing hallelujah. She just sat there. Yes, I went through where Alex's phone was on the night Tammy died. It was the data points were near the church for a long time. Do you think we will hear more about the term loin fire? Has that book been brought in yet? Some background context. Chad wrote a long novel to Lori, I believe right after Charles died, and changed their names to James and Elena. And he sent this novel to her on text. And it was kind of raunchy. It was kind of like, there were some interesting words on there. We published the whole thing. You can go read it. And on there, he talked about loin fire, how his loins were on fire and so were hers, or something like that. We have not heard that term in the court, and they have not referenced that novel, but it might come in. Hang on. Did Chad attend all the services for Tammy? Did Lori? Well, Chad attended the services for Tammy in Utah, and I believe he did in Idaho too. Lori did not. Hi, Nate. Have you heard of the video of, at least as far as I know, she was not at the one in Utah, and I don't think she was at the one in Hawaii. I mean, the one in Idaho. Hi, Nate. Have you heard of the video of Charles pleading with police for help and discussing Lori's bizarre beliefs will be brought into the trial? You know, they haven't brought that in yet. The defense will probably oppose that because they have their standing opposition on anything connected to the Arizona case that they say doesn't apply to this case. But they might show that video of Charles on the police body camera. We've posted that, by the way, if you want to see it. And you feel so bad for him. He's pleading because his wife, is crazy, he says. Also, have you heard of the neighbor in Arizona who noted that Lori threw a pool party on the day of Charles's murder? Will be a witness. Thank you. I don't know if the pool party report was 100% correct. From everything I've heard, it wasn't like a party, like, yeah, loud music and everything. Lori was out by the pool, and a witness said that, and no, I have not heard if that witness is going to testify. If anything, that witness would probably testify in the Arizona case when they pull Charles in when they hold the trial for Charles. Has the pool party Lori threw yet been brought up? Just talked about that. How do you do a constant update during the trial when the rules state absolutely no transmission or recording of any sort? Well, we cannot transmit audio or video. That's what the order says. We can post words. That's what I do. And I try to do it as quickly as I can. I've been doing it since day one. And in previous hearings with Judge Boyce, I've done the same thing on Twitter. And I've never gotten in trouble. So far, he has not kicked me out of the courtroom. But if I get kicked out tomorrow and banned tomorrow, I'm blaming you. No, I don't think that's going to happen. Believe me, I will obey by all the rules. Why did they give Melanie Gibbs DNA? I think I talked about that earlier. I believe it's because she had stayed at the house. But I'll try to get a little bit more clarification if there is some to get. Cindy says, Nate, it has been bothering me as to how Lori could fly to Hawaii under the name Lori Ryan. Does she have double IDs? Well, she probably did. When she got that storage unit, she had an ID that said Lori Ryan. So she probably kept her old license and had a few. And, some people do. I think my wife kept her license from when it was expired, but with her old maiden name, I think she still has it. She wouldn't use it, but I believe that's how. Suzanne, I was wondering what David Warwick's and Melanie Gibbs' relationship is. Are they still married? They live in different states. They were asked about this on the stand. David does live in Utah. Melanie lives in Arizona, although I hear she travels to Utah often. And David said that they were on a break from each other, but they're still legally married. I'd like to pass along a couple of questions for you from Lee. Perhaps you address them. Do you think Lori and Chad will keep a united front as a loving husband and wife as this process plays out, or do you see one of them possibly turning on the other and blaming the whole sad situation on their spouse? Well, thus far in Lori's case, we have not seen much finger pointing at Chad. There could be a whole lot more, and we haven't seen it. Maybe that will change with the defense, but so far we haven't seen that. And Chad is laying low, and I don't know what good it would. So let's say Lori is, found guilty and she's sentenced within a few months and gets life in prison or whatever she gets. I guess Chad can then turn around and say, it was all her, it was all her, it was all her. But where does he, I don't know how that would benefit. I guess that's his defense. But what I'm saying is it probably would have been better for him to do that before the trial. Throw her under the bus as part of a plea deal, and then he could maybe get off with a lesser sentence. I don't know, but that did not happen. So Chad's going to kind of be there, and the prosecutors won't be afraid to take this trial again. They'll take it to a trial if they have to. They've just done it for 4 weeks. It'll probably be another 2 or 3. So they'll do it again with Chad. Ball's in their court. What's been the biggest or most shocking thing you've learned so far in the trial you didn't know before? Well, today was a big one, the hair. Yeah, I didn't know that there was Lori Vallow's hair. I knew that there was hair. I didn't know it was hers. That's a pretty big moment. And also, I guess just the fine detail as to the movements of Alex, kind of all the puzzles. There's not one major thing that's been like, holy smokes. Nothing has truly jaw dropped me other than the hair today. That was pretty big. Will jurors get counseling provided? Good question. I asked another judge about that over the weekend, and that's kind of on a I think it's on a case-by-case basis. I think you have to appeal for it, or ask the court for it. It's not an automatic thing. It's something that the courts are trying to deal with, I think. Not only the jurors, but you think about the court staff, the clerks that have to see this stuff, the judges that have to see this stuff, the prosecutors, the defense attorneys, all of them really. There should be hopefully some sort of plan where they can get counseling or something to help them. Tini, T-I-N-I. Sorry, Tina, Tiny, Tina, Teeny. In reference to tonight's courtroom recap, you were talking about the 911 calls about Tammy Daybell. My question is, there has been some mention there might have been Alex with a paintball gun. Was there any evidence that Alex had his cell phone pinged off a tower that might place him there? There you go. I hope today answer your question, Teeny, Tiny. Sorry if I have your name wrong. Jerry says Tammy's sister testified she visited her family alone in September at Chad's insistence. Did this visit fall on one of the dates the children were killed? Could this have been the reason for staying behind? No. Excuse me. Tylee was killed in early September. That visit was like 2 weeks before the 19th of October. And we know that Tammy was working the day that JJ was killed because Chad sent that text. So I don't think it would coincided with that. I read Alex had a traumatic brain injury. Is this true? Yes, it is true. He was in a car crash when he was 16. Summer said on the stand that he never really, quote unquote, grew up from that. He always kind of had the mentality of a 16-year-old, of a teenager. Did Chad go to the memorial for Tammy that the school principal put together? From Kim. I believe he went to the memorial. It was in Sugar City. There was a memorial in Sugar City. I don't know if the school officially coordinated it. They talked about doing one, but there was one. And yes, from what I understand, Chad was there. Has Garth testified yet? No. No, he has not. Do you think Chad's venue will be moved to Boise? If so, where? Yes, the judge has already moved Chad's trial to Ada County, the same courthouse. We don't know when that trial will happen, but we might know on Thursday, May 4th, Tammy's birthday. There's a status conference for Chad's hearing, and his attorney will likely say, I want the trial in this month and this date, and we'll see what Judge Boyce says. And yes, it is currently in Ada County. Now, I guess the judge could say, we're going to move it back. I don't ever foresee that happening. But yeah, it will be set. We'll go through this all over again. Do you pay for your own hotel during the trial? Do you get a block of rooms with other journalists, or does your news station pay for you to stay? East Idaho News is paying for my accommodations. I'm very grateful for them. I am, and then every news agency pays for their journalists. I know some news companies have like an Airbnb for the month, and they all stay there. Some have friends they stay with. A lot of the journalists live in Boise. Others just stay at different hotels. So I've been to a few different hotels. I've got to see a few, and it's kind of nice to move around a bit. And we see I'm going to Boise next week to sit in on the trial. I don't believe I will have access to a printer. Do you have to print out your ticket to go to the trial, or it can be virtual? You don't have to print it. You just need to show your email when you check in with your ID, and then you will be given a ticket. I don't have my ticket. It's in the car. I've saved every ticket I've gotten, and then you have to hang on to that ticket to get in and out of the courtroom for that day. Brenda says, will you mention in your updates if the bailiffs are positioned near Lori when attorneys and judge leave the room for sidebar and she is alone at the defense table to prevent her from escaping? If she's not shackled, are the bailiffs keeping an eye on her? Thank you. Yes, the bailiffs are always watching her. Anytime there's a sidebar conference, the bailiffs stand up right behind her. There's also 3 other bailiffs, and I guess if she were to take off running, she would need to run through the audience, and there's a bailiff right there by the door, and there's a lot of audience members and prosecutors right there. I noticed today, too, she wasn't shackled to the floor. It looked like she may have had on leg weights or something. I need to check, but it looked like there was something like a big, huge leg weight that might serve as a deterrent to running. Nate, is Dateline working on a new show based on this trial? Stay tuned. Sue, if a guilty verdict is reached, can cameras be allowed in for the victim impact statements? Sue, we have requested a camera for the verdict, and then when the sentencing happens, I'll request a camera again. The camera request I sent in for the verdict last week, I've been told is under advisement, so the judge has not ruled, but hopefully we'll be able to get a camera in there for the sentence or for the verdict. You can see it live as it happens or right after it happens, and then the sentencing we'll try to get on tape too. I think that's enough of your questions. There's so many here, but I appreciate that, and I really am glad that you guys are here following along. I really appreciate it. So we'll be back tomorrow. More witnesses, more testimony. Day 20 tomorrow of the trial. That includes jury selection. So that's another question someone has. Why do we say day 19 when some other agencies say day 14? We're including the week of jury selection. Next time we'll probably say jury selection day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then trial day 1, 2, 3. But if we change now, it'll be too confusing. So that's why we're on day 19 and others are on day 14. All right. Thank you all again for watching. I hope you have a great night. We'll see you again tomorrow. Take care.